On this podcast, we are mainly all overall healthy individuals, likely also elder millennials with diet culture PTSD, who are sick of carrying around the same weight baggage we've been unloading and loading back up since Christ was a carpenter, as my friend likes to say. We are the true weight loss warriors who continue to battle the brainwashing we endured for years about our scale weight. Do you struggle to maintain weight loss but desperately want to feel good in your own skin, confident in your clothes, and improve your overall health? If so, you're home. Hey, I'm Sam, dietitian, specialist in weight management, and former functioning fat girl. I learned the secret of how to lose and maintain weight by simply nourishing my life well. If you're ready for the sustainable nutrition strategies, consistent habits, and freedom from a self-sabotaging mindset, grab your water bottle and let's go. Friends, are you stuck? You need a lifestyle audit. I'm so happy to offer a 1-hour one-on-one coaching session that I call the Winning at Weight Loss Breakthrough Session. During this session, I audit all the different aspects of your day-to-day lifestyle and intake. I compare that with your goal and what you tell me is the main problem you're facing with your health journey, and I coach you on the most simple, realistic thing you can implement immediately to finally break through and start making progress towards lasting weight loss. You'll get a recording of our session, a handout recapping your game plan, and I'll check in with you 1 week later to see how it's going. This is such great value that I only have 10 spots per month available. Click the link in the show notes to book your Winning at Weight Loss breakthrough session as soon as possible so you don't miss out. Stop spinning your wheels trying to throw spaghetti at the wall, no pun intended, to find something that finally kickstarts your progress. Get your simple lifestyle audit in your breakthrough session and start winning at weight loss. I can't wait to meet you. Click that link in the show notes and let's hop into today's episode. Okay, story time. Keep in mind, I am an elder millennial who has survived literally every iteration of diet culture nonsense. So when I was in middle school, I was desperate to lose weight. I wanted to be a cheerleader for my school. I had cheered for many years for our little city's flag football team, but I was always on the B squad. The group of girls that were like not good enough to make the actual squad, so they gave us our own group. Basically, it was like the participation trophy group. Anyway, I wanted to try out for and make the real cheerleading squad at my school. So by that time in my life, at the ripe old age of like 11 or 12, I had already done Weight Watchers, this like childhood fat camp program at a hospital that still makes my skin crawl, and who knows what other ways to lose weight. So this time, my mom got a hot tip from a friend of the family about this woman who was leading a weight loss program in our area. It was really set up with a professional office space, group meetings, just like Weight Watchers. So when you go, everybody lines up to get weighed. You sit down and then the woman leads the meeting and tells us her quote unquote diet plan and what we need to do for the next week. I remember her name completely, and I can see her face very clearly, but I don't want to publish her actual name. I'm going to call her Babs. So Babs was at least, 70, maybe even 75 years old. She was a really spunky, kind, hilarious older woman who had struggled with her weight over the course of her own life and wanted to help others. Looking back, I have a lot of respect for her, entrepreneurial spirit to go ahead and create this business career in her older years. I love it. Her heart was genuinely in the right place. I now believe that at the time, she truly believed that what she was saying and recommending was the right way to lose weight. God bless her. However, now it makes me cringe to think that this was literally just some random lady that lost weight and then started telling other people how to do it too. She was kind of her own influencer, of her own time. She had genuine intentions with absolutely zero credentials or research to back up her claims. Anyways, the diet, are you ready for this? Was like barely any protein. It was all carbohydrates. And by the way, not the high fiber ones. I basically would eat a cup of pasta, good old-fashioned semolina flour pasta with a tiny bit of olive oil, garlic salt, and Parmesan cheese. Sometimes I'd have fruit with it. Rarely ever touched a vegetable. I can't remember. Honestly, I can't remember what I ate for breakfast or if I even ate breakfast, to be honest. I just remember my mom and I portioning out the measuring cup of linguine, my favorite style of pasta, and packaging it up for my lunches and dinners. I know that this is kind of a long story, but the reason I tell you is because I lost about 80 pounds that year. I also happened to make the basketball team's cheerleading squad. It seemed like it was the perfect answer. But I distinctly remember, literally like it was yesterday, sitting at this little table in the cafeteria of Crystal Lake Middle School, eating my garlic salt linguine with my friend Jason, who was an athlete. He was a football player, a wrestler. He did everything. And even in middle school, he was in amazing shape. Clearly, he had great coaches and people who were knowledgeable. And he went on to be an amazing athlete in high school and college as well. But I will never forget him trying to convince me that what I was doing was not a good strategy. He literally told me I wasn't eating enough protein and I wasn't doing any type of exercise to help my muscles, which today we would just say is strength training. But again, this was 7th or 8th grade. I was like, but Jason, hello, look at all the weight I'm losing. And he was like, girl, yes, but it's not fat that you're losing and you're not going to be able to keep it off. I swear on my life, these were the words of my 8th grade buddy. Probably should have listened to him. See, the reason I bring this up is that while diet culture and society has gone through 700 different fads and trends in the nutrition space, people within the sports world have always kind of bucked the system and known what really matters. Mind you, that was peak carbohydrate glory days, and then within the next couple years after that, we dove deep into the fat-free craze where fat was the devil. So we all binge ate Snackwell's cookies and couldn't understand why we were still gaining weight and being diagnosed with diabetes left and right. So anyways, I digress. I'm reminiscing over Jason's wise insight. By the way, shout out to Jason Reed that went to Crystal Lake Middle School in the mid-90s. If you ever hear this, thank you for trying to encourage me to do better. And I hope you know your insight has literally stuck with me for 30 years. Thank you. But what prompted this look back on my pasta diet is that the new dietary guidelines for Americans was released this past week, and it has a lot of people really fired up. Holy smokes. There are a lot of people with a lot of strong opinions. It's impossible to cover all of it in one episode, and I don't even intend to pick apart the whole thing anyways, but there are a few key points I'd like to address. And in this episode, it's going to be the increased protein intake guidance. So, hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so glad you're here, and I really do hope to add value to your healthy lifestyle goals. I, hope that I can be your Jason Reed and that you will take this information with you for the long term. In my practice and on this podcast, I like to say that this is where science meets real life. Because as a clinician, my foundation is rooted in science. It's rooted in evidence-based research. However, as someone who has been maintaining, more than 200 pounds weight loss for nearly 2 decades, I also know that we have to realistically fit that science into actual real life in order to maintain our goals. So for a little background, the dietary guidelines for Americans is created and updated every 5 years by, the United States Department of Health and Human Services and the USDA, the Department of Agriculture. So these guidelines are not meant to be a cookie cutter here. This is the black and white specific answer for every single person. They are merely meant to serve as the foundation for our United States nutrition policy as it relates to federal nutrition programs like SNAP and WIC. Public health messaging, and it also kind of provides like a baseline for clinicians like myself, like dietitians and other health professionals to help guide their patients and clients. There is so much to say about these guidelines, who makes them, how they make them, all the things. But that's not what this episode is about. Nor do I really care to get into the politics and details of all that, because on this podcast, we just care about how to interpret the evidence to fit our life and goals so that we can lose the weight and keep it off without hunger or deprivation. So I really want to first dive into the controversial new protein guidelines. Why they're controversial, to be honest, I really don't know. Because most people, athletes like Jason, who have maintained optimal body performance for long periods of time, if not all their lives, as well as many scientists who study muscle protein synthesis and performance, protein intake and our body performance, along with myself and so many highly credentialed RDs and nutrition experts have been saying literally forever that the recommendation for protein is just simply not enough. Now, mind you, the recommendation is a guideline. It's just a baseline. The previous recommendation was 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. If you're currently like, what the heck is kilograms in terms of pounds? All you do is take your weight in pounds and divide that by 2.2, and that's your weight in kilograms. So you would multiply your weight in kilograms by 0.8, and that would be approximately how many grams of protein the dietary guidelines recommend. And then, depending on your goal, gain weight, lose weight, maintain weight, that number would be adjusted. So in defense of that recommendation, it's really just the amount needed to meet the most basic nutrition requirements and prevent deficiency. It is not a recommendation to achieve optimal metabolic function and results. I have viewed it, in the words of Cher Horowitz, if you know, you know, as just a starting point to begin negotiations. I don't know any person that is like, yeah, I want to lose weight and just basically prevent deficiency. I just want to be like at a baseline level of functioning. No, we all want to be at an optimal level. We want to feel our best. We want to feel our strongest. So, that number, like I say, when you view it as just kind of a like, okay, you just need like literally at least this amount just to be like not sick. Nobody wants to walk around as like not sick. We want to feel good, right? Okay. So it's definitely way too low as far as I'm concerned. And I am all for the increase. Like I said, the other day, the new guidelines for the next 5 years were released, and the protein recommendation is now 1.2 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, which in my professional and personal opinion, I think is a much, much better starting point. It's important to remember that it is nearly impossible to give a black and white number that is correct for every person all the time. Not nearly impossible. It is just straight up impossible. We are all different. We all have different medical histories and different future goals. Not to mention, we all feel better when consuming a different macronutrient ratio. So what is optimal for one is not optimal for another. On this podcast, we are mainly all overall healthy individuals, likely also elder millennials with diet culture PTSD, who are sick of carrying around the same weight baggage we've been unloading and loading back up since Christ was a carpenter, as my friend likes to say. We are the true weight loss warriors who continue to battle the brainwashing we endured for years about our scale weight. We want to know how to love ourselves enough to finally lose the weight in the healthiest possible way so that we can keep it off and live a long, overall healthy lifestyle, right? Right. Okay. So I'm going to make the case for prioritizing lean, mostly animal source protein for lasting weight loss and maintenance. Ready? Okay. Number 1. It keeps true belly hunger at bay. So meaning protein sits in our guts for much longer than anything else. That's why it's the most satiating macronutrient. It keeps us feeling satisfied for a longer period of time. Obviously, overeating isn't always about true hunger because we use food to satisfy literally every emotion, but if we're legitimately hangry, it's already setting us up for failure. So when we prioritize getting a good amount of lean protein every time we eat, we are less likely to feel hungry again before the next mealtime. When we eat a meal or snack that is primarily a carbohydrate source, it doesn't sit in our guts for as long. Those foods tend to kind of empty from the gut into the rest of the GI tract much quicker and therefore make us feel hungry again much sooner. We call a lot of those foods slider foods because they just kind of like slide right on through and then we feel hungry again. So prioritizing protein at all meals and snacks helps to eliminate excessive snacking and overeating. Number 2, prioritizing lean proteins balances blood sugars. You don't have to be diagnosed diabetic to have spikes in blood sugars. Every person's blood sugars spike and drop depending on what and how they're eating. Carbohydrate source foods, in particular simple carbs or overly or ultra processed carbs, including just straight up sugars, will spike our blood sugars and then send it into a drop afterwards. And it's in that drop that we experience those deep visceral cravings that are impossible to ignore. We may really love things like protein and vegetables, but we don't typically crave those foods like we crave carbs and sugars in between those blood sugar spikes and drops. And then once we get on that roller coaster of highs and lows, it's increasingly difficult to get off. We can end up just, kind of grazing or binging on high carb sugar foods all day long. When our blood sugars are out of whack, we feel out of whack. We are more moody, we're more stressed out, we're mentally and physically exhausted, and we feel just overall crappy, for lack of a better term. If any of my fellow gastric bypass patients are listening, you've probably experienced the dreaded dumping syndrome at some point, which is essentially a reactive hypoglycemia, meaning your blood sugars spike based on something you ate with too much carb or sugar, and then you have a dramatic crash an hour or two later. It's exhausting. And by the way, you don't have to have had gastric bypass surgery to experience reactive hypoglycemia. It's not fun, and it can happen to anyone. So keeping our blood sugars balanced throughout the day can keep us from overeating or unnecessary snacking. It can keep our mood and our mental focus in check. It keeps our energy levels balanced and overall keeps us feeling more stable and strong throughout the day. One of my favorite aspects about prioritizing protein is that it can really help us with portion control without having to weigh and measure every single morsel. Now, don't get me wrong, I am a huge proponent of tracking. And if you know me, you know I encourage long-term tracking for lasting success. However, I don't think consistent tracking has to mean tracking every single calorie and gram of macronutrients exactly forever. Meaning, when we prioritize the lean protein of our meals, meaning make sure we have a good amount of lean protein on our plate. Good amount, in my view, is at least 25 grams of protein per meal, at least, but depends on the person and the total daily protein goal. So make sure we have that good amount of protein on our plate. And then also a great rule of thumb is to eat that protein portion first before you eat anything else. There are so many factors that play into this part. It takes you longer to eat it because it takes more work to chew since most lean proteins are more dense and tough. For example, it takes you longer to eat a chicken breast than it does mashed potatoes because you have to work for it more. When we eat more slowly, we pay attention to what we're doing, we chew well, our brain has time to understand what's happening, and we know we're being fed. We're getting satisfied. So once we've eaten that good amount of protein, we're already feeling good and we don't physically have as much room for the other stuff. I want to make an important point here. Prioritizing protein does not mean only eating protein. Remember, I'm a good Italian girl. I would not want to live in a world without carbohydrates. It's not happening. So by eating the protein first and then going to your veggies and preferably high fiber complex carbohydrates, your brain is still happy that you got your carbs in, but you didn't overeat them because you only had enough room for a normal sized portion. Obesity data shows that people do not tend to overeat protein. It's typically the other stuff that we overeat. So by eating the carbs last, we're less likely to be able to overdo it because we just simply don't have enough room. Make sense? The other aspect of that is Protein sources have a higher thermic effect of food, which basically means we burn more calories during the digestion and absorption of those proteins. Yes, eating actually burns calories. Everything, literally just being alive, is burning calories. But don't get too overly excited. Too much eating is still too much. The point is you can burn more calories with protein sources versus carb or fat sources. Okay. And then the final point I want to make in this episode is in the case for prioritizing lean proteins for lasting weight loss, more protein increases muscle protein synthesis, which means it grows our muscle cells and increases lean body mass. And it preserves muscle cells over time. This is further improved when we pair the protein intake with exercise, specifically strength training. So what happens when we lose weight without adequate protein intake and a further layer of like a lot of cardio and no strength training is that we lose precious lean body mass instead of the fat. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Even though the term we most often use in our bizarre diet culture society is weight loss, we really shouldn't want to lose weight. We should want to lose fat. That's what's unhealthy and dangerous to have too much of. So if the number on the scale is going down, but it's muscle and not fat, that is no bueno. It can set us up for injury, fatigue, weakness, our metabolism slows, insulin sensitivity worsens, our body composition does not look the way we want it to look. It's just a crap show, and we're much more likely to regain the weight afterwards. Another positive to increase lean body mass is that we burn more calories at rest. So putting in the work to consume adequate protein and get in proper strength training then allows our body to keep working on the fat loss even when we're not in the middle of a working out. It's a well-oiled machine that just keeps on going throughout the day. How cool is that? I love it. In summary, there's a lot of chitter chatter out there about protein. How much is enough? How much is too much? All the questions. The old dietary guidelines aim to recommend approximately 10 to 35% of daily calories coming from protein. And as an elder millennial who has successfully battled the disease of obesity for nearly 2 decades, in addition to my evidence-based research as a clinician and specialist in obesity and weight management, I absolutely encourage placing the priority on protein for lasting weight loss and maintenance. I, for myself, recommend, and for most of my clients, depending on them and their goals, my recommendations are usually much closer to anywhere from like 25 upwards of 40-45% of daily calories from protein, and that's approximate. It just depends on the person. There are a multitude of reasons why, but specifically because it manages true hunger, it balances blood sugars and quiets food noise, it naturally allows for portion control, and it increases the thermic effect of food, and it improves muscle protein synthesis and muscle preservation. All of this allows for a much more pleasurable journey to weight loss, but most importantly, lays the foundation for lifelong health and weight maintenance. I hope all of this was helpful, and really, again, what I hope for is that you all carry these messages with you for as long as I carried my middle school buddy Jason's wise words. It's funny, but it's true. Shout out to you, Jason, once again. And if you're interested in what all the hype is about surrounding the new dietary guidelines and you have any specific questions or areas of it that you'd like me to cover in a podcast episode, please don't hesitate to email me and let me know. I'm happy to cover those things. Until next time, my friends, I love you. God loves you. Have a great day and get your protein in. Hey friend, I really hope you feel empowered by this episode. If so, would you take 30 seconds and share it with another friend who needs it? Also, please leave a quick review for the show on Apple Podcasts. It brings me so much joy to know this podcast is helping you. Okay, time to go nourish well, aka eat some good food. I'll meet you back here next time for another episode. I love you and God loves you. Have a beautiful day.